Rams house. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports. Today, we're going to talk about what's left on the agenda for the Los Angeles Rams offseason. So far, it's been an A-plus effort from Les Snead and Sean McVay, going out and attacking this team's biggest needs in free agency and via trade. We've already talked about in depth the excellent move that they made to go out and acquire Trent McDuffie, and then they followed it up by signing his former teammate Jaylen Watson. But it leaves you with one major need, one thing left on the roster to address, and that is your third wide receiver option, a guy to go with Puka and Davante. So today, we're going to talk about the three paths to wide receiver 3. Make another trade. We're going to talk about A.J. Brown, kind of put a bow on all of that. And then we're going to talk about another option that I think could be interesting for the Rams. I know you guys get a little tired of the trade rumors, but you got to understand trades could come at any time from Les Snead. Then we'll talk about the draft. Guys that you could draft primarily at 13, although I think 61 will be an option as well. We'll talk about that in future videos. And then we'll talk about free agent options, guys the Rams could look at in free agency. But first, before we get into it, I want you to make the call. Let me know, what path do you want the Rams to take? Do you want to see them trade for somebody? Do you want to see them draft a receiver 3? Or do you want to see them sign someone in free agency? Let me know in the comments below with a T for trade, a D for draft, or an S for sign. And let's put that bow on the A.J. Brown trade rumor, something I know you guys are not huge fans of. You've made it very clear, and it doesn't seem like the Rams are either at this point. Pro Football Talk fired off. Some see an A.J. Brown trade as inevitable, with the Rams being the most likely destination, or with the Patriots being the most likely destination, The Rams, were told, have tapped out of talks. So it doesn't seem like the Rams are interested in making a deal for A.J. Brown. As I've said in previous videos, we talked about this earlier today, I think the price tag was just too high on the end of the Eagles, but it seems like they're clearly open to making a trade for a wide receiver, to moving off of likely draft capital to acquire that third option and that future running mate for Puka Nacua. Could that be Brian Thomas Jr.? Trade rumors have swirled BTJ throughout the offseason. It's been an interesting situation. I'm not going to lie, we were going to talk about this a couple weeks ago, or really just about a week ago, when the Max Crosby trade fell through. We were scheduled to talk about that day, but then we had to redo everything. But I want to come back around to it because I do think it's an interesting option. Connor Hughes put out on Twitter on March 9th, sources, the hashtag Jaguars are entertaining offers for wide receiver Brian Thomas. He said he had learned. And then Adam Schefter quickly followed up and kind of canned this whole thing by saying, I've been told that the Jags aren't interested in trading Brian Thomas. His name continues to be floated out there, but the Jags have no interest in moving on from him. Is this true, though? I don't know. To be honest with you, this report from Schefter, and yeah, I guess you could make the same argument about the report from Connor Hughes, feels like something the team would put out there to kind of drive up the price. Be like, no, we're not interested in moving off of Brian Thomas Jr. Wink, wink. But if you sent us the right deal, then, maybe we'd listen to it. What would that right deal look like? What is the price tag to go get Brian Thomas Jr. at this point? I've put together a couple trade offers. The first of which is you go out and you get him for a 2026 second and a 2026 third. This would be moving off a lot of draft capital in 2026. I absolutely admit that. But you would, in return, be acquiring a receiver who, despite a down year in 2025, was unbelievable his rookie season. Had a serious case to be rookie of the year that season, if not for Jaden Daniels. Just unbelievable effort. 1,400 yards from Brian Thomas Jr. in his rookie season with the Jags, in an offense that was, outside of him, not that productive. It's actually kind of interesting that he did take a step back the year that they took a step forward as a team. However, in talking with our Jags host, Colin here, shout out to Colin, he told me what the Jags would really want if you'd really want to get a deal done for Brian Thomas Jr. would be a first-round draft pick. And there is no chance that the Rams would move off of their 2026 first-round draft pick because that's the 13th overall pick. That would be way too much to give up for Brian Thomas Jr. coming off of a down year. To be honest with you, I'm not even a huge fan of giving up a 2027 first for Brian Thomas Jr., but apparently that is what they would want. That 2027 first-round draft pick is apparently, according to Colin, what the Jags would want. I think if you threw this at them, they would jump at this offer. Despite the reports that the Jags are not interested in trading Brian Thomas Jr., I really do think if you threw an offer of a 2027 first-round draft pick at them, coming off of the down year that he's had, with how much James Gladstone loves to deal draft picks, or loves to deal in general, I think he would jump at an offer like that, in my opinion. But let me know in the comments, do you think that offer would get a trade done for Brian Thomas Jr.? And would you even send it? Because to be honest with you guys, I'm iffy on that. I think there's a lot of other ways that we could address receiver, like the draft. Let's talk about a couple of draft targets at 13 that the Rams could look at. Or one of them is more of a trade down guy, but we'll get there when we get there. Starting with someone that would definitely not be a trade down target, someone you may even have to trade up to have a real shot at, Makai Lemon out of USC. I've put together a little scouting report on each and every single one of these guys, and Lemon is so fun. When you watch his tape, I call him the Green Goblin because he's just so tempting. Like, I feel like teams that have other needs just watch his tape and they're like, man, I just really, really want to draft him. I feel that way when I watch him. He is so dangerous after the catch. 502 of his over 1,100 yards in 2025 alone came after the catch. He is not a burner. You saw that at USC's Pro Day when he did finally run a 40. What did he time out? 4.52, if I want to say, or if I remember correctly. I don't really care. He has plenty of acceleration to threaten defenses. He's clearly not a track guy. You could tell from the start. It's not something he does very naturally. But what he does do very naturally, and what I care about a lot more, catch the damn football. This guy could catch away from his body. He can catch through traffic. He is fantastic. And what he loves to do, and what works very well with the Rams offense and Sean McVay's scheme in general, is get over the middle of the field. He is fearless on post routes. He is fearless on slant routes. He is fearless on these levels concepts that have him in harm's way with bigger linebackers coming over. He's not the biggest guy in the world at 5'10", I think 190 pounds. But he plays so much bigger than that. He goes up and gets the football. He wins in contested catch situations way more than a guy his size normally would. Lot to love about Makai Lemon. Would be very happy if he was the Rams selection at 13th overall. Something I know I've made clear in the past. And somebody else I'd be very happy if the Rams were able to come away with him at 13th overall, Jordan Tyson. It is going to be a tough decision between these two guys if they are both on the board at 13, because they are both fantastic players. You really can't go wrong between the two of them. Jordan Tyson would be such a natural fit across from Puka Nacua for the long term. He has a lot of the same skill set that Davante Adams does. I think, like, if you projected what his ceiling would be, like if he hit every development marker, was the best version of himself, he might have a career like Davante Adams did. And I know it's a lofty thing to put on him, but he's that kind of prospect. He really is. He's an elite separator. I think he separates better than anybody in the class. His routes are fantastic, very, very crisp. The major concern with him, it's injury related. Unfortunately, you can't talk about Jordan Tyson without talking about the fact that he missed 48% of his possible college games due to injuries. A lot of that happened at Colorado, but he also had a serious one in 2024 that cost him the playoff and the finish of Arizona State's season. There's also some drop concerns. This popped up mainly in 2025. He does have, at times, some great catches in traffic. His hands do seem to be, he's a natural hands catcher. He doesn't have to catch with his body like we talked about with Makai Lemon. But at times it just seems like he takes his focus away from the football, worried about making a play after the catch, and doesn't secure the ball. So got to work that out of him, but I think that's coachable. Next up, someone I also think would be an excellent option, has been described as by Daniel Jeremiah the Ramsiest receiver in the 2026 NFL Draft, Indiana's Omar Cooper Jr. He would be a slot demon for this team. I think that's where he's best. That's where he played exclusively in 2025. He was a little more versatile in 2024, playing in and out of the slot, also doing some outside work where he can thrive in that role as well. But I think he is at his best when you operate him in the slot, which does bring a little bit of complication because Puka likes to play in there as well. So you kind of have to see where that works out. Super explosive athlete, 4'4", 240, 37-inch vertical jump, some of the best numbers of any receiver at this year's combine. The one thing you worry about with his fit into a McVay scheme, you demand effort and excellence from your receivers as far as run blockers. That is not Omar Cooper right now. That's what kept Tutu Atwell off the field. I'm not saying he's Tutu Atwell, but he doesn't have the effort right now or the physicality when it comes to his run blocking, but he's got the physical tools. So it's like, just get there as far as effort, just get there as far as coaching, and we can make it work. Average numbers as a contested catch receiver as well. He does have the really phenomenal one against Penn State to put the game away. So I know it's kind of funny to say that, but when you look at the totality, and producer Gage is shaking his head. He's a big Penn State fan. Sorry about that, Gage. I didn't even think about that. If Omar Cooper, despite that one super fantastic play, he just not really across the board, super consistent with the contested catch moments. Lastly, let's talk about Carnell Tate. And the reason we haven't talked about Carnell Tate too much to this point is because at the end of the day, I do think he will be off the board by the time we're on it. But a little bit of a slow 40, and you've started to see the draft projections slip a little with Carnell Tate. So, hey, maybe there's a chance he's around when we are. He'd be fun. I think he... we talk about Jordan Tyson is the best separator in the class. He's the best route runner in the class. He is so good, so veteran with his routes. He just does not look like someone who is coming out of college when you watch the tape, when you watch how crisp he is, when you watch the way he sets things up. 50-50 ball champion, 12 of 14 on contested catch opportunities in 2025, just goes up and gets it. I would love to see him fill out his frame a little bit more. He's a taller guy, but I think I would like to see him put on a little bit of weight, put on a little bit of strength. Press coverage was an issue for him at times against bigger, stronger corners, and you're going to see a lot more of those guys at the NFL level. And then at the end of the day, it's the top-end speed issue. I don't really care about the combine run at 4.52, but don't draft Carnell Tate expecting him to be a burner. That is not his game. That's not Makai Lemon's game either. Honestly, I don't think that's really any of these guys' games. None of these guys are going to be like 4.32 deep threat dudes. Omar Cooper is probably the fastest of them at 4.42, which is still crazy fast. But Carnell Tate, obviously at 4.52. If you ask Adam Schefter, 4.47. I don't really care. At the end of the day, he wins with his routes. He wins at the catch point. These are things that I believe will translate. But let me know, of the four guys, of everything we talked about them on today's video, who sounds the most appealing to you at 13? Give me an ML from Makai Lemon, someone we've talked about a lot, been a channel favorite. Give me an OC from Omar Cooper, the Ramsiest receiver in the draft, if you ask Daniel Jeremiah. Jordan Tyson, give me a JT. Carnell Tate, give me a CT. And let's move on to the last option. Free agents. Free agency. There was a guy who was on this list that actually we had to take him off, Christian Kirk. I signed just an hour or two before we filmed this video, so rest in peace to Christian Kirk as a Rams option. Unfortunately, he became a 40 whiner. So that is terrible news. Stephon Diggs, though. Let's talk about him. Interesting option as a player. Obviously had a pretty good year in New England, helped that team make the Super Bowl, helped Drake May have a resurgent year after, solid rookie season. He came back incredibly well. Obviously came up second in the MVP voting to our boy Matthew Stafford. Did not deserve to win that award. Shout out to Brett Alper. But a great year from Diggs. But then some off-the-field stuff comes up with him. And I don't know if you can seriously consider him until that off the field stuff is really sorted. There's the issue with his at-home cook that came up, and then I believe there's another issue as well. I'm not going to speak on all the details of everything because I'm not super well versed in it, but the Rams need to be before they engage with Stephon Diggs, and I think you need to let things play out in the court system, because what you don't want to do is bring this guy in and then have it come up that he can't play for you at all, or that he did something absolutely horrible that brings a lot of negative PR to the franchise and he never plays a down. You don't want to engage with that if that's going to be the case, but I knew there were going to be a lot of comments about Diggs if we did a free agent list and we didn't include him on it. Jauan Jennings, pop him next. He's another interesting option for the Rams. Obviously, he comes over from the Niners, someone that you are pretty familiar with, given how long he spent with them. Wanted a pretty good deal with San Francisco this year. Injuries popped up for him. Didn't end up playing as well as I think he would have hoped. Now he kind of needs to reset, I think. He's probably looking for a 1-2 year get back on track contract. I think the Rams would be happy to give him that. You could sign that contract with him, and I think you could still draft even if you did go in the Jauan Jennings route, because I don't think that would be a long-term commitment at all. Second to lastly, Deebo Samuel from the Washington Commanders. This is another interesting option. He's primarily been connected to the Rams because of the Cliff Kingsbury connection, which is strong. Cliff Kingsbury, clearly a huge part of the reason why he came over to Washington. He commented on how excited he was to work with Cliff. They got him involved on a lot of the screens. If Cliff wants to do a lot of that in Los Angeles with Sean McVay, if that's a big part of why Sean brought him in to implement that into Sean's play calling, then maybe bringing in Deebo Samuel makes some sense. But at the end of the day, is he really worth signing at this point? I think he's pretty washed. And then Tyreek Hill, another guy like Stephon Diggs and arguably DeAndre Hopkins, who I could have had on this list as well, that you just feel like people will mention. Tyreek Hill's just dealing with way too many injury situations. Hopkins, though, I probably should have had him on this list. He just kind of occurred to me out of nowhere as somebody that we should have talked about. Definitely could be an interesting option as well, someone that the Rams could look up. But all in, after everything we've talked about, if you haven't already, I want you to once again make the call. Type T for trade, type D for draft, type S for sign. Let me know which of these options sounds most appealing to you. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm typing D for draft. At this point, trading for Brian Thomas Jr., it's interesting. I feel like BTJ, his rookie season, if we could be promised that we would get that version of him, I would be excited about that deal. I'd do that second and a third for him in a heartbeat. I'd even think about the 2027 first. But coming off that 2025 year where you saw the production dip massively, you have a lot of reservations about that. All the free agent options that we listed, all the guys that we talked about, they're either old enough that you can't consider them long-term options or come with serious injury or just production risks. And then lastly, the draft option, this would be a cheap thing that you could get for 4 years, potentially a superstar. We've seen so many receivers come into the NFL over the last couple of years in the first round and much, much later, including our guy Puka Nacua, and just be day one stars. If we could get a guy like that, I would be absolutely thrilled. And I think there's a handful of them that will be available for us at the 13th overall pick. So one more time, let me know what you want this team to do with a T for trade, a D for draft, or an S for sign in the comments. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports.